Well, I didn't think we'd make it to air before the Cleveland Guardians made their decisions on the 40-man roster. It is 5:45. This is the Guardians of the Future podcast. I'm Justin Lada, joined, if you're watching us on YouTube, by Willie Hood, as you can see. Well, I didn't think we would make it online before Cleveland announced their additions to the 40-man roster, but here we are, always making us wait to the last minute. I guess we planned it perfectly so we can have some banter before the decisions are made.
Well, like I told you earlier today, Justin, in our direct messages, I said we won't hear anything till about 6:30, and it'll be Zach Measle who breaks any news. So I think that will likely hold true too, by the way. It seems like they're always one of the last teams to have any information break on them. So as of right now, no surprise to not hear anything from them.
Yeah, definitely not surprised that they would be the last teams to make any announcements. I'm trying to think who else hasn't made theirs yet, but there's been a couple. Okay, so where we're at with the last few minutes, they have about 14 minutes as we're doing this to get it done. I'm just going to send out the link so if anybody wants to watch us and comment live on the show while we're doing this, as we're waiting for the Guardians moves. Okay, so tonight, I think I'm still at Martinez and Cantillo. I think the only way that anything else happens is if they make another move I think they'll keep Luke Maile in the roster. I think the obvious subtractions are Ghosts and McCarty. I think they'll hang on to Maile just because I think you mentioned this in a previous podcast. They would lose some leverage potentially if they only go into the offseason with just Naylor and Lavastia in the 40-man roster. So I think that makes a lot of sense just to hang on for a safety fail. Not that they couldn't revisit any of those additions if they didn't. But the only other way I think they create room is, I think like we talked about before, a trade of like Richie Palacios or something. I suppose Luke Maile is an option. I guess it depends on what they would work out trade wise. But even if they created a third spot, I don't know if they necessarily will fill it. I think, but the options for the third spot to me are David Fry, Tim Herron, and Nick Mikolajczyk. I think that's kind of where it ends for me. I know other people have brought us other names, but that's kind of where it ends for me. I think that's the group of five that I think have any chance to be added in the next few minutes. What do you think?
Well, I mentioned Peyton Battenfield. I think Quincy Wheeler threw that out on Twitter earlier today too. I'm going to say Battenfield just because he matches kind of what they did with Pilkington last year. That swingman, fifth starter role. There's some value there. At the very least, I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up trading him to, say, somebody like Baltimore or one of these rebuilding clubs to add some pitching depth that way. But I think he ends up on a 40-man roster somehow.
I could see that. I don't think Cleveland will, just because I think that they added Gaddis and Curry during the season for spot starts. If they were serious about Battenfield's future here, I think he would have gotten the nod over the two of them. Just considering he had spent all year in AAA and those two guys had only had a few starts in AAA at that point. And Curry, came all the way from low A last year to make his debut this year. That's incredible.
Yep.
I just think that those guys passing him, I think said a lot about where they are with him. And make no mistake, if he goes unprotected, I think there's a good chance he gets taken. I think, like you said, Baltimore, maybe not Baltimore. Baltimore might be rounding the corner in terms of where they're at developmentally. I don't know what their pitching situation looks like. I know they have Grayson Rodriguez, who's probably not too far behind, but I don't know who's got open spots in the 40 that they can make room for. There's the Rangers, I think.
Washington. The Nationals were pretty thin at the end of the season.
Yeah, there are teams that will see Battenfield and see that he's come from Houston and Tampa Bay and Cleveland, and they will say, all right, this is a guy who's been in 3 good pitching development organizations. Yeah. We know he had a down year last year. Let's spend $100K on a guy that we think could be a major league starter, at the worst, a good reliever, and see if we can get him back to 2021 where he was much better, see what happened. And that's going to be the same thing with Nick Mikolajczyk too, I think is a concern, is that, Mikolajczyk had sort of a breakout year in 2021, and then the velocity recovered somewhat this year. He wasn't holding like last year at Akron. He was mostly 93, 95, was hitting 96. I think there might have been reports of him hitting 97 at times, but I don't know if I can confirm that. I know 93, 95 was kind of a normal thing for him. And this year he was really a lot of 91, 94. So things that kind of, even 90 at times would slip for him. He did show the velocity again at times. It was there for sure. And if you're watching us live on YouTube while we're doing this, feel free to leave any questions, comments on the Guardians as we wait for their 40-man roster announcements while we're recording this live. We'll post it later as a podcast reacting to the moves when Cleveland decides to put them out, and they have 9 minutes as I'm saying this, which is crazy. Maybe it'll come after the deadline. Who knows? They're waiting for the buzzer on that trade with the Tampa Bay Rays. The Tampa Bay Rays, by the way, I don't think have made any ads yet, and I think they've made one trade. They traded Miles Mastrobuoni. I had the Rays making like 10 moves today, like between guys they had to like remove from the 40 and activate, and guys they had to get on the 40 ahead of the Rule 5. They haven't done anything yet, or they did one thing. So I think we're going to see things.
A lot of it coming down to the last minute for Tampa, who is always in a crunch, it seems, with this roster situation. Fortunately for us, I don't think Cleveland's is near as bad as Tampa's. I know addressing a lot of those moves in the season, like Bo Naylor, Will Brennan, Will Benson, all of that helped alleviate that. They just went ahead and trimmed the fat, so to speak. I was glad to see them do that last year instead of sitting on guys. And they even moved off of guys early in the season, like Oscar Mercado and a few of their other moves. So that was encouraging as far as where the organization is and what they're thinking. I said Battenfield. I'll revisit that real quick. Back to the old thought process that any starter can become a reliever. So you protect a starter or a guy that you think can be a major league starter, and at worst you convert into a reliever. That's why I throw Battenfield out there. You mentioned Heron, Mikolajczyk, and one more.
You know what? I should have said Nick Enright. I said David Fry, but I'll throw Nick Enright in that group as well. I don't think it's likely, but I'll throw him in there as kind of a long shot, just because I think you see the results there, and some team will take a chance on him if he's unprotected. I think I don't know everybody else's 40-man situation, but I'll throw him in that group at the very least.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree, and I think Enright stands a good chance of being picked because of that curveball fastball combination, but not only that, where he is as far as polish goes, because he's got the command to pitch out of the bullpen, be a low leverage type of arm, middle relief type of arm. I think some teams will value that, even if it's a second round pick. But you have a team like Washington, whose 40-man to me is essentially devastated because I think they only had 30 guys protected at the end of the season. I haven't looked at that in a little while. I'm sure they had to add a few prospects. But a team like that's clear rebuild, and that's what I meant when I said Baltimore earlier, because the Orioles are usually the team you think of over the last, seems like the 5 years that's just been in that continual rebuild. But the Orioles are actually coming out of it, as you pointed out. I'm really curious to see what they do. I think Zach Meisel will break it first, as I said. And I think last year the news came about 6:30. The year before that, maybe around 7 o'clock. So if we get something around 6:30, I'd be a little bit surprised and happy. Come on, guys, let's get this done.
Man, it takes longer to count.
Fax machines in Cleveland do not work, Justin. Come on, man. We had that conversation.
I know. Before. Well, I know, but it's like it's at the trade deadline and all that stuff where you get some deals in under the buzzer that don't come out for like 10 minutes after. I can't be sitting here till 6:30 waiting for this all night. We need some action. A lot of fans are very thirsty for any kind of rumors, anything happening at this point. So,
we can start some rumors just to give them something to talk about.
I'm not going there. I'm not going to be throwing any matches into the fire. There's not a lot of kindling out there as it is, but everybody else is trying to rub two sticks together for any hope of something at this point. And so far it's been a big goose egg. I don't think you'll see any big trades today. There There's been some hot stove items though. I mean, we've seen some guys get signed to other teams. You know, Anthony Rizzo went back to the Yankees. I know some Guardians fans are interested in him and didn't see that as a possibility, truthfully.
No.
But there's been some other stuff, you know, floating around. Tyler Anderson, the Angels gave up a second-round pick and $39 million to sign Tyler Anderson, which, you know, makes sense because the Angels are terrible at drafting. So why would you bother even having the draft pick, right?
Unless you're going to trade the guy away. They'd be better suited at that if you can even get value for him.
I'll tell you the one question I keep trying to answer, and you asked me on Twitter too, and I still don't know the answer, is if the Mariners can trade that pick away that they got in the for Julio Rodriguez winning Rookie of the Year, because he met all the goofy qualifications from the CBA that I still don't know why the players agreed to that, but whatever. They wanted to play baseball. I don't know if they can trade that or not, but the Mariners are going to be in great shape for the draft next year. I know we're talking draft as we're waiting for the Guardians.
I believe they have
to jump in.
I believe they have a compensation pick as well, one of the comp around picks. If I'm not mistaken, they may have a comp A pick this year. So that would be 3 top 40 selections. That would be awesome for the Mariners.
That is some cash.
Yes. That's a lot of payroll. Well, not payroll, but a lot of bonus pool money that you can play around with. They could really
They're going to make it rain on draft day.
Yes, absolutely. And I asked you, hey, if they could trade that, I would be interested in Jesse Winker. And I want to throw that out there because, you know, Cleveland was tied to him last year. What happened with him out in Seattle, Justin? I don't remember all the details there.
He had a bunch of injuries at the end of the year, but there were also some reports that came out at the end of the year, too, that he was not a well-liked teammate, that he was having some issues, I don't know, rehabbing, and some players didn't think he was working hard at rehab. I really don't want to say what it is and be wrong, but there was definitely some radio interviews that were given that were talking about the players just weren't thrilled with whatever he was doing at the end of the year when he was hurt. And I don't know if it was just not showing up or what he wasn't doing, but I think that kind of takes him off Cleveland's list right there. If there's any makeup concerns,
which
that probably eliminates them.
Which there was some reported red flags on one of the catchers that's on the market this offseason, and they supposedly didn't.
Wilson Contreras.
Yes. They supposedly didn't have interest in him because of some of those issues. Do you wanting to play?
You know, we asked some of our Cubs friends about that, and they did not understand where that came from. That's not what consistent with what they've heard in Chicago. Yeah. On the north side, so I don't know. I guess it's a conflicting thing. Maybe there's some other stuff going on there, but he's a free agent. I don't see that happening for Cleveland. I know we keep beating the drum on the catcher thing at this point. I don't know. It would make for a really interesting situation. Like, okay, let's say they add David Fry to the 40-man roster. Mm-hmm. What does that tell you about what they're going to do? Like, where do you think, what direction does that send them in? What do you think they're going to do with that? Because that to me signals some kind of, I don't know if it's just them making sure they have catcher depth on the roster going into the next year, or does that say that maybe they feel like they will play around with the flexibility he provides and maybe give him a chance at earning a bench spot in spring training or something?
Yeah, he'd be a really interesting add because of that right-hand bat that he'd bring to the bench, and there's some power there. Can play first, can play third, and then obviously, as you said, catcher. But I think his numbers are down as far as caught stealing it. I think you should expect that though when the guy's barely played catcher all year too. Though he's not going to maintain those skills behind the plate. Bringing that emergency option for them if there were to be an injury, let's say Bo Naylor was designated hitter and Cleveland had another catcher. Naylor could move from designated hitter. You could lose the catcher, or you could just move in at David Fry. That's kind of the scenario they would be looking at to protect against. I think he would be a good platoon bat. I would hope that they go big at first base, but you know what? I can understand if they go that direction. To me, if they went and added Fry, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're adding another catcher, but they have to. They have to add another catcher. They have to at least add a backup. I guess what I'm really saying is if they added Fry, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going after Sean Murphy and it's all in on him or Wilson Contreras or even Christian Vasquez for that matter. I think adding him may just mean, hey, we've got a platoon partner with Naylor that can back up at catcher in case of an emergency. But I don't think it would be any indication that, hey, we've got 4 catchers on our roster now or 3, whatever, they end up with. I'd like to see them at 4. To me, that's the ideal spot to have 4 backstops.
Yeah, you almost need the opportunity to have that. I'm kind of coming around to the idea of adding him just because, like, they don't have any depth at the top of the system. It's literally right now, and this is why I kind of think that they're going to hang on to Maile for the time being. We'll see what happens. I don't know when the non-tender deadline is. I think it's a little bit later than this, obviously. So they don't have to non-tender anybody right now. There's a bunch of moves trickling in. None of them Cleveland surprise. It's 6:00, by the way. It's 6:01. There's no news on Cleveland. It's Cincinnati and the Cubs, and have all gotten their names out. Cleveland is the last to announce. But now I'm kind of curious. I know.
Probably Tampa. I say Tampa makes at least 3 moves today. Trades.
Well, Tampa Bay just made a move as you said that, actually, Willie. So you were right on it. They traded Xavier Edwards and JT Chargois to the Marlins for Santiago Suarez and Marcus Johnson. I'm not sure. I know who Marcus Johnson is. I don't really know much about him. I don't know who Santiago Suarez, but Xavier Edwards was one of the guys they got from San Diego for Blake Snell. So the Rays, the Rays decided to go against that trade. So we'll see. I can't believe I should believe Cleveland's going to last one, but now I'm interested in Fry being added because, you'll have Lavastida, Naylor, and maybe Maile on the 40 going into the offseason as catcher while they try to make some moves. You don't have Gavin Collins filed for free agency. There's just not a lot of depth at the top of the system catching wise. You've got, I got to pull up the rosters, I suppose, to see, but it's like,
Eric Rodriguez was pretty high last year.
The thing is, it's not because they're depth guys. Andrew just chimed in to tell us that non-tender deadline is Friday, so Cleveland will have to make a decision this week on Luke Maile regardless. Seth Cannell, played at Columbus this year. Mm-hmm. He played at Akron. Angel Lopez and Eric Rodriguez, like you said, are still around. Zach Fascia moved up and down the system. Michael Enditis. Catching is a really bad spot throughout the entire system, truthfully. It's really in bad shape. If they were to lose, I know the reports aren't fantastic on the defense for David Fry, but I would just think from a depth standpoint, if anybody feels like he can do anything defensively and he can hit, you're vulnerable if you let him go and he gets selected in the Rule 5 draft because then you're really screwed catching depth wise. So I would almost say that it makes a ton of sense. If it'll come down to what Cleveland feels intel wise, who they're gonna, they always have a decent idea of who wants their players, right? They always should have an idea of what people value in their system, checking around the league. But I'm kind of coming around to the idea of David Fry, just if they feel like they're nervous with their catching depth and someone could take him because, like we just said, catching depth is pretty bad in Cleveland.
Yeah, that's something that they haven't really addressed in the draft either the last few years. It used to be they would draft 4 catchers a year and sign 2 or 3 of them. And, Logan Ice really not working out. And same draft as Sean Murphy. We wouldn't be pounding a table to trade for Sean Murphy if they'd have just drafted Sean Murphy when they had the opportunity. Missing in the draft a talented guy like him hurt. Of course, Andres Melendez's death was devastating for the organization and for his family. I mean, that's one we just can't get away from. I know we've mentioned it several times throughout the year. It's just a position of value. You don't want to forget about him and what he meant to the organization and his family. But at the same time, you don't want to keep on bringing him up bringing up a sore subject, if you will. Just unfortunate how somebody so young can lose their life. And, we see the effects of it, really. on the baseball. I don't know what it's done to his family. I imagine they're devastated, but it's left a hole in his family's heart and a hole in the organizational depth chart too that they just haven't been able to fill.
Yeah, it's been, he was for sure the third best catcher in the system behind Naylor and Lavastida at the time when that happened. So extremely unfortunate for them, and obviously mostly unfortunate for the family. One comment: Cubs have the roster at 38. This is log 13-124. Take the roster. Cubs roster at 38, leaving 2 spots. Feels like a spot for some Cleveland players to end up at. I could see that. I could see Cleveland. I could see. I don't know. I don't know if the Cubs need Richie Palacios, or I'm trying to think of who would be at the end of Cleveland's roster. Maybe a Will Benson. I guess. I don't think the Cubs are in desperate need of any outfielders, but could be a reliever. They could
as another potential piece that could be traded.
Owen Miller for Ian Happ. Is that what you're trying to say? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I'll do that.
Call it in.
Happ had a Gold Glove year last year in left field. Turns out we wouldn't even need him anyhow, with Stephen Kwan breaking out the way that he did.
I know. This is crazy. Maybe you're right. It's 6:06. Maybe we are going to be here all night waiting for this. I mean, it's definitely they are probably the Twins and the Tigers will announce theirs. Cleveland is the last team to be doing this. This is hilarious. They're probably talking to the Rays. Yeah, let's see if I can. They're not being announced on Twitter. What are we going to do if Twitter goes away? Because this is how we find stuff out, man.
Somebody's going to have an Instagram account.
Man, I don't know. I don't even like other social media apps. Who would have thought that Facebook might be our last haven? Because I mean, Facebook owns Instagram, so who knows how that will end up.
It is then, Justin.
Yeah, okay, that's a great time to bring this up while we're waiting. Okay, so if you're listening and you've been a fan of the site or the podcast in the past, we have a Discord. Ask for it. I'm not going to throw the link out on Twitter. I just want to make sure we're not I don't know. Not that anybody can't join. I just would prefer to, make sure people who are interested are in there, and it's going to be a good conversation. It's not just a free for all. So if you're listening to this and you have liked the podcast in the past, or you have enjoyed the website, anytime you enjoy our discussions, shoot me in a message on Twitter, whether it's just a tweet at JL_baseball or at official_CGBI. Ask me for the Discord link. I'll DM it to you, no problem. Or even go on the site. There's a contact form on the site that says contact us. You can ask for the Discord link there. I will gladly get that to you. If Twitter does go down in flames, which could be any day now. I don't know. It's such a mess. I'm trying to get the Discord happening. It hasn't happened yet. We have one. People are there. I'm trying to post some stuff there. There's not really a whole lot of conversation there yet. But yeah, if Twitter is done, then that's where we're going to be. And until we figure a better solution out, I'm exploring Substack and all the other kind of stuff too. So yeah, but hit me up for the Discord link if you're interested, as a fail safe, and just as a way to have another conversation that cuts through the noise too. We had this Discord, I think, back in March, April, early on.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be a way for our writers who were covering games in person, minor league games, Lake County, like me, and then Columbus and Akron, to just post their thoughts right there, direct to the GBI fans, so they can get them instead of having to search them on Twitter. A little more direct messaging and a little more, right to you if you're looking for that information. I ended up not getting there, but we're still going to continue to push through and try to make it happen. So definitely, hit me up for that link if you're interested. More Rays trades. The Rays traded Brett Wisely to the Giants for Tristan Peters. I don't know who either of those players are. I'm going to be honest. So, but
Tristan
the Rays
Peters is a center fielder from South Illinois, yeah. I think. Small frame guy, on base type, with some speed.
Okay,
if I remember correctly.
So I'm guessing they are kicking the can down the road. They are getting guys that are 2023, 2024 eligible guys.
Yeah, they just saved themselves a couple of years on Peters.
Yeah, and I'm surprised Cleveland hasn't done that yet. I thought we'd see that But I don't think they need to this year. There's nobody in the roster. Like, that's the other thing is last year we talked about that being a possibility for Cleveland, and instead they traded Junior Caminero to the Rays for Tobias Myers, which was a giant egg on their face. Even if Caminero ends up not being good, which I don't mean, it looks like he's going to be, Tobias Myers was awful. He's on the White Sox right now in the minor league system. He's bad. That's too bad. I was excited about him, but looks like a bad trade in retrospect. This year, I don't know. Is there anybody that you see on the Guardians like that are Rule 5 eligible that you would be like, all right, let's trade him and kick the can down the road and get a 23 or 24 prospect? Like, I don't see anybody that unless they felt like David Fry or one of the relievers or Gabriel Rodriguez was going to get selected and they were like, hey, we'll trade you him, and if you really want him, if you're going to select him, we'll trade him to you now, and we'll give us a guy that, either give us cash or give us a guy that doesn't have to be added to the 40-man roster for a year or two. But I don't really see a lot of those guys. Do you?
No, I don't. I think we're probably talking more trades like a Will Benson or a Richie Palacios, Owen Miller type for either an A-baller or maybe like a comp B pick, something like that. I will throw out something that occurred to me. If they move off of Luke Maile, it does open up that spot where you only have 2 catchers on your roster. But if they do, I think there's the opportunity to potentially trade him and get something minor in return, just because he has 1 year. And catcher is such a thin position around the league. A lot of teams want that extra third, fourth catcher if they can get one. And he'd provide that relatively cheap too. I think $1 million, $1.2 million or something like that is what he probably projects out at on MLB Trade Rumors. I haven't checked that out yet.
Yeah, I don't know. You're right. Catching is a commodity for sure. And he's going to be cheap. It's not like he costs a lot. I just think that depth-wise, it just makes sense. I mean, it's Friday too. Like Andrew said, the non-tender deadline is Friday. They'll make a decision no matter what at that point. You might as well tender him and see what happens. You can always release him later. I don't know what the rules on that are. I'm sure Andrew might know. There's probably somewhere it's happened before. If you tender him a contract and you decide to release him, they might be responsible for that once they tender. I don't know. Oh, but you can always deal him or something.
Yeah, with the new CBA, they are responsible. It used to be under the old CBA, and that's thanks to Andrew, by the way, who answered that question in our DMs. That Cleveland would be on the hook if they did tender him, because I did mention that in our last podcast. It used to be if they tendered him and then cut him before opening day, they'd be out of it. They wouldn't have to worry about it, but it's essentially a guaranteed contract now. But like I said, I think it's $1 million, $1.2 million or something that he would get just off of my guess for the playing time and the effectiveness that he had while he was on the field. But there's still some value there. Because he's an okay backup to have around, a third, fourth catcher for a lot of teams. I'm not sure if he has one option remaining, but he's 31, 32 years old too, so probably out at this point. But my point to that is that catching always has value. I think Cleveland only exposes themselves if they know that they can come back around and hit up a Roberto Perez or somebody on a minor league deal and refortify that position in that direction. I don't think you have to worry about if, for example, they did do that. You don't really have to worry about him going in the Rule 5 draft, him being a free agent. I think he's a guy. I think somebody would have already signed him or locked him up. I don't think there's gonna be a lot of people beating down his door.
That's a good point too. So anybody you sign as a minor league free agent that you don't add to your 40-man roster right to today, they're eligible for the Rule 5 draft next year. That's something I don't think I always understood in the past. So like, I'm trying to
Martin
think.
Cervenka was selected that way. He was signed by San Francisco or Baltimore and then ended up with the other club through the Rule 5.
Well, that would have been the case last year with Oscar Gonzalez, but no, even a major leaguer, I'm saying, like, so if somebody goes out and signs like Oscar Mercado to a minor league deal, like today, just for example, because Oscar Mercado is now a minor league free agent, he would be Rule 5 eligible if that happened. Even major leaguers can be Rule 5 eligible, because I think someone said last year, like Sandy Leone could be selected in the Rule 5 draft. I'm like, that's wild. I mean, I thought it only applied to prospects, so I didn't always know that. So guys with Major League service time, I believe, are eligible for the Rule 5 draft. So you can't even stash those guys before the Rule 5. I guess you have to do it. That's why I think you don't see a lot of minor league contracts before this date. But just one of those crazy, weird rules that no one ever thinks about, no one ever talks about. That's a good point to bring up.
Yeah, and that's why
I'm wondering if
it'll all fall kind of mid-December. You'll have those minor league contracts come in after the Rule 5, but before Christmas time. Teams will want to get those moves done, and players will be eager to have their deals in place before the holidays too. So that's why you see a bunch of moves pop up right in the middle of December.
Yeah. I'm wondering if I know it's been going around that if you log out of Twitter and you use two-factor authentication on Twitter, that Twitter's API with two-factor authentication apps are broken. So if you log out and you use that, you can't get back in. Kind of wondering if maybe Cleveland made their moves and then people got logged out or something. I don't know, because it's 6:16. We're still going.
It was 6:30 last year, Justin. I'm telling you. It was 7. It was 7 o'clock.
Better than mine.
It was 7 o'clock. I have useless numbers and facts in this brain. You should know that by now.
I know. My fiance always says the same thing. She's like, I don't remember random details from games like you do. And I'm like, yeah, it's because you're a teacher and you have relevant stuff in your head you have to know to teach kids. I have this stuff in my head, and it's worthless, trivial stuff. Got a couple people still watching on YouTube. So if you haven't chimed in, if you have any questions, any comments on Rule 5 draft, any rules or anything that's going on regarding that, the 40-man roster, feel free to leave us a comment. We can see it in real time and we'll answer it. Still trying to speculate through what exactly is going to happen at this point. Doesn't have to be even Rule 5 or 40-man roster related. We could take any. Let's try to keep baseball related. I was going to say we could take any questions at this point, but let's try to keep it baseball related.
Yeah, we'll avoid politics and religion. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The weather is nice. How's the weather where you live?
It's great. It's great. Yeah, I'm just going to go look at the roster too. And if you haven't been to the site in a while, our good man Arthur Kinney keeps the roster all updated on the back end of things. So I already went ahead and gave him the go ahead to add Angel Martinez to the roster and publish it. So if you go to the website, we got a trade. Oh, Carlos Vargas is going to the Diamondbacks for Ross Carver. All right, that is quite a move. That is a spot cleared. Wow. Didn't have that on my bingo card.
And my phone ain't even updating. I'm just sitting here.
No,
who did he get traded for?
Ross Carver, a starting pitcher who was at Double-A this year. Out of all the guys I thought would go, I mean, I guess we probably should have considered that Carlos Vargas would be at the end of the 40-man roster, but that one really kind of slipped my mind. I thought with the time spent with him on the 40-man roster, it's not really resources invested money-wise, but they sat through 2 seasons of him taking up spot on the 40-man roster. Didn't think that he would be a guy they would move on from, but boy, there you go. That's a big disappointment for you and I, Willie, because we've been waiting for Carlos Vargas, the reliever, for a couple of years now, and it's taken a while just because of the injuries and stuff. But never going to get to see it in Cleveland now. He almost made his debut. He was warming up in the bullpen for a minute during that 15-inning marathon against the Twins in September. Never got in the game because they decided to go let Kirk McCarty finish the game out instead of go to Vargas. That tells you where he was at that time, and he was there for an emergency, and that was literally close to happening. But I'm disappointed for sure. They invested the time in his Tommy John rehab and time on the 40-man roster. He's going to get an option year back at some point because of the time missed. So the Diamondbacks need relief help very badly, I will say. So this is an interesting move for the Diamondbacks. Do you have anything on Ross Carver? Because I haven't looked it up yet. But,
I don't. I don't even recognize the name. I think I've seen the name one time, so he's not popping for me.
Yeah. Huh. Boy, that talk about being caught with your pants down, huh? That was
really.
not something any of us predicted. He
Round 20 draft pick in 2021.
Yeah, looks like he
So,
didn't miss a lot of bats last year. He looks like a depth arm. Wow, not great numbers at Double A. He was at 22 and high A last year with a 3.10 ERA in 81 innings. He did strike out 29% of batters, 97 strikeouts, 27 walks, 81 innings. Made 9 starts at Double A, 31 strikeouts, 15 walks, 36 innings, 10 hit by pitch. Okay, so Double A didn't go great for him.
as a 22-year-old, a year almost, well, 2.5 years younger than league average too. So, I don't know.
Michael Moore, I don't know why Walker or Kelly, Merrill Kelly or Carson Kelly weren't part of that trade for Carlos Vargas. Nope. Guess Carlos Vargas isn't carrying that kind of value. I'm not surprised by that either, truthfully. Carlos Vargas was not a guy I thought.
Varsho too?
What's that?
We're not going to get Dalton Varsho too?
No, I guess not. That's so weird.
Interesting seeing them getting a Double A starting pitcher, though, who obviously is getting Vargas off the 40-man. I guess it tells you what they think of Vargas. I think for him, maybe there's some command concerns, how that's going to work out. He does throw pretty hard, but they've tightened all of that up. I would have given him a chance. You know, I was excited to see what he could do with that slider, that mid-upper 90s fastball, but the world may never know.
Well, I think they'll know in Arizona. Arizona needs Arizona needs relief help, so this makes sense for them.
Mm-hmm. But Cleveland
is
very smart about picking up pitching too. We know that, so I don't want to. The sky is falling or anything like that. Carver was 22 last year. He's 23 now. Was a 20th round draft pick in 2021. So, you know, Cleveland must see something. I don't know what he signed for or what. You know, I don't know details on him.
Good question by Richard, real quick, by the way. He wants to know, does this mean they will now protect one of the relievers? I don't know. I'll have to see. I don't think this guarantees that because they still have to eliminate one more spot to add both Cantillo and Martinez to do the roster's at 39 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Martinez is a no doubter. What's that?
They don't need to because of, as I said earlier, starting pitching. You can move a starting pitcher. Cody Morris, for example, can go straight into the bullpen next year if they wanted to do that. I mean, it looked like he was going to head that direction. Joey Cantillo can go that direction if they want to do that, assuming he's protected. Connor Pilkington, Xavier Curry, Hunter Gaddis, any of those arms, those starters can become relievers. Seems like Cleveland's already converted Vargas into a reliever, and he's probably at his peak value now for Cleveland if they're going to trade him. Like I said, they obviously like Ross Carver. They wouldn't be trading for him. You know, that's just kind of my take on it. Not familiar with him, only haven't heard his name, you know, kind of in passing or something. I know I've seen his name somewhere, but he's not really striking a chord with me either. So,
yeah, I'm looking at the Fangraphs page. He's not on their prospects list. He's 23. He'll be 24 next year. Not Rule 5 eligible for 2 more years. To me, it looks like a depth arm. We'll see. I'll have to go back and take a look. Someone did tell us that he was a 20th round choice out of Dallas Baptist. Not Willie. That is not the Dallas Baptist player I wanted. Do you know who I'm referring to?
Wrong Dallas Baptist player. That's not Grace Brady. But Dallas Baptist does have a thing for producing major league talent too, especially arms. So, you know, maybe Cleveland can sneak a thing or two and he becomes something. We shall see.
Yeah, I was looking forward. Someone said on Twitter, looking forward to Vargas coming out of the pen. I was too, for sure. I was very interested in seeing him coming out of the pen as well. I mean, the fastball, for as hard as he threw it, did play below its velocity. It wasn't like it was a guy who can touch 100. His fastball should be like 70 grade consistently, right? If you could touch 100 consistently, you should be a 70 grade fastball, but really he wasn't a 70 grade because it played down due to the movement. Now it got a lot of ground balls, so that was good. but he had a hard time throwing it. The slider was good. Had some interesting traits. There was a guy at Prospects Live, Tieran 711 on Twitter. He had a great article the other day mentioning the unique shape of Carlos Vargas's slider and how it's a gyro slider and doesn't get a whole lot of horizontal movement just because of the way he throws it. And excuse me, the velocity throws it at consistently at 90. So it's an interesting pitch. The slider is good on its own. So, it may have a negative impact on his fastball. You know what I mean? Like if teams don't respect his fastball because of the lack of command and the lack of good shape on it, the slider probably gets dinged a little bit because of that. I didn't think it'd be that bad, but I guess it's a possibility. He wrote that from a data standpoint, and obviously we didn't consider that. What do you got?
I got Nick Picoro, who tweeted, Carver 23 has a weapon in his plus curveball. He pitched well early, but struggled after the promotion to Double-A this season. So there's a little nugget that we found on him. There's a plus curveball, something Cleveland probably thinks that they can optimize with him. I think he just turned 23 and will be 23.
Yeah, he'll be 24 in August next year.
Okay. So he'll pitch the year at age 23 then, because August will be the end of the season. So he's already in Double-A too. So.
The curveball is weird. I'm just going to retweet a video real quick from the Emerald Sod Poodles where he pitched. The curveball has some interesting movement to it, I will say. There's not a lot on Twitter about Ross Carver right now. If you go on Twitter and look for video, it's a lot of college stuff from him. So clearly he was a little more video clip worthy out of college, but curveball certainly has some interesting movement to it, I will say, at the very least. I don't know. We'll obviously have to dive in, and we'll have to consider whether or not he is worthy of adding to our prospect list at some point. We'll have to get on that. But yeah, Vargas with the fastball just doesn't miss bats like we thought it would. Like I said, from that piece from Tieran was really good, talking about how it could ding the slider as good as the slider is. So something to think about. We both thought Vargas could have been a very good reliever for them, but obviously the fastball command was never there for Vargas, and the slider on its own wasn't enough for him. Probably should have seen him as more of a end of the 40-man kind of thing. I really just thought with Vargas, it was a situation where they had the time invested in him and his TJ rehab and the fact that he was going to get an option year back. I kind of thought, okay, they'll hang on to him and see. But what I'm curious to see what this does is, look, there can't be any way that they are going to carry Anthony Gose while he's rehabbing from Tommy John on the 40. That just doesn't make any sense. They can non-tender him and he doesn't get exposed to waivers, and they can re-sign him to a minor league deal. If you DFA him, obviously he's exposed to anybody, so I don't think they'll do that. I guess this probably eliminates trading Richie Palacios, though, unless they have something lined up. I mean, we were thinking
a couple of moves and get younger. So you mentioned that earlier, is that Cleveland could make a move and get younger, so to speak, an A-ball or whatever. This is effectively that by doing that. Obviously, somebody or something that they see in Carver that they like. I'm guessing it is that curveball that Picoro said is a plus pitch. Maybe Cleveland thinks that there's some mechanical changes that they make or can make, but Cleveland has done this with pitchers in the past where they've acquired guys and then developed something about them, and then they've really thrived in Cleveland's system. So I hope it's that with Carver. I hate giving up Vargas. I like him quite a bit, but that's Zach Measle calling me to let me know the moves.
Yeah, okay. Gotta get the inside scoop. Make sure your phone stays on and stays working. Still haven't seen the Guardian. It's almost 6:30 now, so as we're still going. And
I told you they were going to be the last team.
I know. I'm glad we said 5:45. We started recording at 5:45, and we were debating on when we should do this just to make sure we were still recording when the moves were made, and this was live reactions. But didn't think we'd be waiting this long. You are absolutely right. 6:30 is where it goes. Here's the Rays' other protections, by the way. Taj Bradley, Curtis Mead, Elvis Basabe, Greg Jones. Oh, they corrected Greg Jones. I'm kind of surprised. Greg Jones, high pick for them, but they having a lot of struggles lately. And Colby White, who I think would have been taken. They still got to open 3 more spots. That'll be interesting. And the Rays still have – they added all their prospects, but the Rays still have to make some moves to add all their guys. The Pirates moves are in. Yeah, Cleveland still is just continuing to wait. I don't know. Are we going to get the manager of the year announcement before we get the Rule 5 or the 40-man roster announcement?
We may get the Rule 5 draft before we get the 40-man roster.
Somehow Cleveland has found out the loophole in the system. Comment from Andrew here. Let's see. The face of it don't think that this is much of a trade return for Cleveland. Carver isn't Rule 5 eligible until the end of 2024. So there's at least some roster flexibility with him. Yeah, I agree. I think this is really, like I said, kicking the can down the road. They're looking to see if they have a possibility to turn this guy into anything. But if not, he's depth for them while they get a little bit younger on the 40 and clear a spot. The guy I'm not surprised. I some people might say, why don't we get more for Vargas? I think he can be special, but Vargas doesn't have a whole lot of value. He's not pitched a ton. He's coming off Tommy John. Yeah. He didn't have the best year in the minors. The velocity was there. The control obviously wasn't. And, we're still waiting to see what the effects of the slider are, or what effect the fastball that plays below its velocity does to the slider. So I expect that we will see him pitch out of the bullpen for Arizona without a doubt.
Yeah, I think he'll be up pretty quickly for Arizona and eventually develop into a very good arm for them. I don't know. It's one of those things internally and externally, how we evaluate prospects and how they evaluate prospects. They have more data than we do. They know off-field concerns, things like that. And I'm not dropping that on Vargas to say that there's any of that with him. But they know more than what the casual fan does in most cases. And I tend to think of you and myself as educated fans, because we spend an awful lot of time watching video. You attend a lot more games than I do and see them in person. And I like watching a lot of video clips of guys and watching games and breaking that down. I think there is value in moving him for a roster spot. It's just the question is, what do they have in mind for the roster spot? And I'll throw in there that, it stinks losing Vargas as somebody who really liked him myself and promoted him in that slider quite a bit. But you know what? I'm curious what they're going to do with Carver now. And this pitching development that Cleveland has, there must be something there that they see with him that they want. The thing with this, though, is command is usually the last thing to come with guys who's had Tommy John injury. So I wonder if Vargas's command continues to improve, but he was always a fringe average type of maybe average at best because of his athleticism. I just think that's probably the concern with him is, where is his command going to be? And you know what? If you're striking out 12 guys and you walk 4 or 5 per 9, you can do that as a reliever as long as you're striking out guys. Look at James Karinchak. You have to be effective and be highly effective. I don't think it's hey, let's hit the panic button. He is somebody that it's a little surprising to us to hear his name in a trade, but you know what? I still trust this organization to make the right moves too. So I'm interested to see Carver, and now I have something to do this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. I have to look into that, see what's going on there. I am. Are you more surprised that? Okay, now it's 6:34. Willie, come on, what's happening here? I feel like someone. You know what? There was a internet outage up here in Northeast Ohio. If you use, I think it's Breeze Line, they've had an internet outages all day today. So maybe they cannot get their picks in or their moves in because the internet's down. Maybe they use Breeze Line and their internet's out. I don't know. They were able to get that trade in though. with Arizona, so at least that's done.
Well, that's coming from Arizona's side too, not Cleveland's side. So there is that as a factor.
That's a good
Usually
point.
it's the other side leaking that. Cleveland hasn't leaked anything. It makes me wonder if there's a few other things with Cleveland going on still too. I mean, obviously they've made their moves, but
well, the thing is, everything's got to be finalized. The paperwork had to be submitted by 6 o'clock, or right then. So I don't know. Maybe they're just having a hard time getting their paperwork in today. It'd be really funny if that was the case. Wasn't that? Is that what the Browns tried to say? Remember, it was the one year they were trying to trade. Yeah, they were trying to trade for
Cincinnati's quarterback. I don't remember his name.
I don't either. It was a disaster, and they blamed it on the fax machine, but it was because the coach, I think it was Hugh Jackson at the time, and I forget what quarterback they were trying to get, but yeah, the GM and the coach couldn't see eye to eye on who they wanted to trade for. I think, I don't know.
He was the Bengals backup. I think he was a quarterback at Alabama in college, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I can't think of the name either, but didn't end up happening.
Anything though, so.
Mike was right. It's AJ McCarron. It was AJ McCarron. That's just such a Browns thing to do. They try to trade for a backup quarterback, and they somehow have some sort of drama over not trading for a backup quarterback at the deadline, and it has to do with fax machines and fighting. I don't know. Sure that's not the case here, but we're still waiting. So we'll see.
And there's a rumor on the internet right now that Angel Martinez has been added to the 40-man roster. So.
Well, we already knew that was happening, so that's not really. I mean, that's why I said we went ahead and just added him on the site at the on the rosters page. And again, check that out. The rosters page is always being updated with any kind of news. We mentioned this before too. If you're just starting to tune in on YouTube while we're still going live, so we're gonna have like 5 seconds to react to the actual moves here, but tell
us about Angel Martinez, Justin.
Yeah, about Angel Martinez. Huh?
You see him this year?
I did see. I saw a ton of Angel Martinez. He had a pretty good season for Lake County. He could play second, he could play third, short. I don't know about third base, maybe not quite third base, but definitely shortstop. I think he has just enough arm for. Great approach at the plate. You look at his walk rate, and you always wonder sometimes, are some of these guys passive or patient at the plate? These guys have high walk rates, and I think Martinez is definitely patient and disciplined in terms of how he works the strike zone, so that's good. Definitely not a guy who's passive. I think there's some power still to be grown there. Yeah, the approach is good. Contact's good. I mean, 20 years old, got to Double-A this year. Obviously, was good at both levels. Just a very solid player. I know, Willie. He was a guy you have liked for quite a long time. I think he is just a very solid. Where did we end up with him on our rankings when we got at the end last year? Did we put a 50 on him? Because
15 or so, I think it was. Maybe middle of the year. It was between 10 and 15. I do know that.
He ended up at 17 in our midseason update. Okay. He was actually 17 in the preseason, so he didn't move at all. He stayed the same. But I would say, I don't know. We had him at a 45 during the season. We didn't change a whole lot of grades from midseason from the beginning of the season to midseason. I would say Martinez, probably you could put a 50 on him now, right? I feel like he could be at the 50 on the 50 now.
And I said, I think he's a guy that outperforms his numbers, and also is a guy that I consider a top 10 prospect too, back half of the top 10. He's likely to get pinched just because of the depth of the organization, but he's somebody I think is a top 10 prospect in a lot of organizations too. Somebody that's just going to be a really, really good ball player once he gets up. And that's been my whole thing is the ceiling is pretty good for him, but the floor is extremely high for him as well. And seeing him hit like he did in Arizona, and then or not Arizona, Akron, and then perform like he did in Arizona too. I think really shows the talent and the skill and the baseball IQ that's there with him. That's been the thing with a lot of their international signings that play that position. Playing shortstops, they want high IQ guys with a lot of athleticism, and he has those things. Somebody that's gotten faster, got stronger. As you said, there could be some more pop there with him. He's somebody that some people say he can't play shortstop. I think he can play short, second, third, and be fine at any of them, and be at least an average major leaguer. I would not be surprised if one day he's an all-star, makes an all-star appearance in his career, but never has 30 home runs or anything like that. Just somebody that's just a very good baseball player.
Yeah, I agree. No, I think for a guy who has a lot of upside, and I think his upside has grown. I think, like I said, he was a guy we had a 45 on coming into the year just because we felt like the most likely outcome for him is like a utility type infielder who can maybe play a little bit more often than that because he's a switch hitter and he's a good glove and he can run. What's funny is he's kind of like I don't want to say it's like a Ahmed Rosario, but he's a more patient Ahmed Rosario. You know what I mean? Like he does a lot of things very. Yeah, I get. Well, no, because he's patient. He doesn't, he strikes out more than those guys a little bit, but he doesn't. He walks a lot. Like he's got more patience at the plate. Maybe he's more like what we thought we hoped Jose Fermin would grow into, and not that we don't like Jose Fermin, who got traded to the Cardinals last week, if nobody heard, but.
That was worth mentioning, by the way. Somebody that you and I have liked for a while.
Mm-hmm. But I think Martinez is kind of like what we wanted from Jose Fermin, was a guy who could play 2 or 3 infield positions fairly well, runs well, good approach to the plate, makes contact. But I think that Martinez could have 15 to 20 homer power when it's all said and done. I think there's a chance for that there. I don't know if it's how great of a percentage I would say chance it is, but I would say I believe that talent is in there for him. I can legitimately see him being a 2020 guy. Can't you? I think he has the tools to do it. It's just whether or not he gets that kind of power in game. I could, 15-15 maybe, almost like Andres Jimenez. Maybe he's like Andres Jimenez. Yeah. No, he's got the skills. I mean, he's one of those guys where he's raised his ceiling this year for sure. But he's one of those guys who has a ceiling that continues to grow, but also has a safe floor. You don't get a lot of those prospects very often where the ceiling is as a starter and then the floor is a utility guy. Like usually when you have a lot of those guys like that, their floor is a little bit lower and definitely a future major leaguer one way or the other.
Yeah, I think so. As I said, that the ceiling's pretty high and the floor is even higher. The extremely high floor for him is one of the reasons they liked him when they signed him. And part of the reason that I've been on him and saying Martinez is top 20 prospect, top 15 prospect for a long time, probably like 3 years now. I mean, you see our personal rankings, and I think I've had him 15th, and I may have been the high guy on him for a little while. And then MLB.com may have had him higher than me even this most recently, this last year, if I remember correctly. They had him higher than I did. And he's just somebody, like you said, that will be a major league player. There's a lot of tools. He's raised that ceiling. I think he's a really good ad for their organization. Somebody that could be a cornerstone type of player for this team. And the funny thing is they have so much depth in the middle infield. It's just the rich get richer. We've talked about it at one point in time. Do they trade away some of these guys? I would not be surprised if Angel Martinez ended up being the organizational shortstop when it all is said and done. We've looked at everybody else, but he's the one that kind of gets overshadowed sometimes, but is just an excellent prospect. Yeah,
I think that if you were to have Martinez in the majors, and Andres Jimenez is still here, I would probably opt to put Jimenez at short and Martinez at second. Mm-hmm. I think second base for sure is Martinez's best position. It might even be Jimenez's. I don't know. We have to see more of him at shortstop, but I think they can both play short if needed. But I definitely think that Martinez's best spot is second base. if they both make it. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we'll see. He's going to probably start the season at AA again in 2023. You know, you've got Rocchio at AAA, who still needs a path somewhere. You still have Arias. You still have, as of right now, Ahmed Rosario. I don't know. Just a very weird situation with all that, and they have to make some moves to figure that out. It's 6:45, Willie. I don't know. Did someone forget to leave milk and cookies out for Santa? Like, I'm just so confused. Like,
we'll have news by 7:00. Zach Measle will break it.
You said 6:30. You're 15 minutes late, man.
Yeah, I know. Well, 7:00 a year ago. Like I said, last year it was 6:30. Yeah. The year before that it was 7:00. So, you know, no surprise. I think if anything, what we learn out of this is let's be a little bit more patient next year, Justin.
I guess next year we start the podcast at 6:30 after the deadline.
It's 7:00.
So we got some late additions here as they're watching live on YouTube. William Stearns wants to know what happened. So all we know so far is Carlos Vargas has been traded to the Arizona Diamondbacks for starting pitcher in AA, Ross Carver, who has 2 more years before he has to be added to the 40-man roster or be exposed to the Rule 5 draft. That puts Cleveland's 40-man roster down to 39. We're still waiting. We believe Angel Martinez has been added. That hasn't been confirmed yet. We're still waiting to see what other moves have happened. The fact we haven't heard anything yet, which is amazing, tells me that there are going to be more moves to be made. That is not the only move being made. That would be a major surprise at this point if Cantillo wasn't added. It would be a major surprise if no more moves were made, period, just because of how long you had to wait. If that was it, why wouldn't you just announce it, right? It would be for a while. I struggled with Cantillo adding him. Like, the talent's there, the health hasn't been so much, but the performance and the talent are just so good where I don't think you can afford not to at this point. So I would say I think I continue to say 80% sure he's going to be added, and we're still waiting on that. They have to make another move to do that. Yeah, roster crunch relief for sure for Carlos Vargas. Just an unfortunate numbers game, and just seemed like they weren't 100% sure. I guess they just kind of felt like, you know, they spent their time on him, and it wasn't worth continuing to move on. I don't know what it means for the other relievers they might want to add, but it's just so bizarre. Here's the real takeaway. Everybody should learn from this experiment of waiting for the Guardians news to get out. This just tells you how tight-lipped the organization is. So when you see any reporter, I don't care who they are, and they're saying, oh, the Guardians are connected to this player, interested in this player, they might trade this player, they're listening on this player, it isn't coming from the Guardians, because guess what? They don't let anything out. We're sitting here at 6:48, and we don't even know what their 40-man moves are outside of the Carlos Vargas trade. And that only came from the Arizona side of things. There's no way. I doubt a Cleveland source gave that to them. So if Cleveland ever makes it into the news with the reporters, it's because A, they're leaking it for leverage, B, someone else is using them for leverage, or C, the trade or the move is actually getting close to being finalized. Nothing happens until, you know, moves are coming down like in the past.
Hey, Justin,
oh yeah, go ahead.
I got a little news on Ross Carver here. As I said, 20th round draft pick from 2021, possible rotation candidate for Arizona. This is coming from Fan Nation, written by Michael McDermott. So age 23, he's a starting pitcher, signed for $50,000. Fastball, he gave him a 50, curveball a 55, slider a 50. He gives the changeup a 40, command a 50, and overall he says he's a 45 prospect. Carver's fastball sits 93 to 96 with some arm side run. He can throw two different breaking balls for strikes using his slider more than his curveball. The development of his change will be the key for him to stick as a starter. Let's see. 15 starts last year, went 2-5, 3.10 ERA with 97 strikeouts, 27 walks, and 81 innings. Then was promoted where he made 9 starts in Amarillo. He went 2-5 with a 9.50 ERA, so he got smacked around in Amarillo. 31 strikeouts, 15 walks, and 36 innings. So performed well in High A Hillsboro, and then got knocked around once he got moved up. some useful information there on him.
Yeah, I haven't seen him, so I'm not going to sit here and judge the guy's grades on him or anything like that. But I am just purely going off of Fangraphs data, like pitch data or whatever. 8% walk rate in AA this year, or high A this year, and almost a 9% at AA. 50 command that must be what this guy thinks his command can end up being, because your control grade is always higher than command, right? If you have 50 command, that means you have above average control. So that means you have like Cal Quantrill level control. That's about right. Yeah, Cal Quantrill probably say has 55 control, 50 command. So that means that has to be him projecting him with 50 command, because the numbers on his minor league data so far don't support 50 command, because that doesn't support 55 control. I'd have to go back and look at the correlation there, but
I think I would say
like a 7% walk rate in the majors is about above average control.
Well, he goes on to finish out this article, his MLB projection. Carver is a potential conversion candidate to the bullpen, already sitting mid-90s as a starter, and any sort of velocity bump would make him a potential back-end bullpen candidate. So he's already sitting 93, 96. He's saying it sounds like if he gets moved to the pen, his velocity would play up and that he would be a good back-end bullpen candidate. So maybe we're just kicking the can down the road, like you said earlier, and we end up with same type of back end of the bullpen type of arm with Carver, so this guy isn't falling. We hope.
Yeah.
We haven't seen the move yet, so.
The Vargas thing is that, look, the stuff said he had back of the bullpen potential, but the road to get there we knew was going to be not easy. We had him higher a few years ago. I think we started the year with him at 27 overall, and he ended the year at 21 overall. We both projected that he had the potential to be a nice reliever in the back end of a bullpen, but it's not like it was, there's a reason ranking relief prospects is never a good idea, because you just don't know. That's why you just try to be careful about who you rank and how high you rank them when it comes to the relievers. And we didn't know what Vargas was going to look like coming back from Tommy John. Just like I said, the velocity was not a problem with him for sure. The fastball, we all said, played down because of the movement, even though he had good velocity. The slider, definitely a good pitch, but in a vacuum, that one pitch is not enough. There are no one pitch relievers. I shouldn't say that. Emmanuel Clase. Wow, we really did. By the way, Terry Francona is the American League Manager of the Year, so we really did get the Manager of the Year award before the 40-man news.
That's hilarious.
By the way, guys, this podcast wasn't to react to any 40-man roster news ahead of the the Rule 5 draft. It was actually we
were here to talk about Terry Francona being Manager of the Year.
I said yesterday that I thought that he would win because it was possible that people thought it would have been maybe his last one, possibly. Because no one knew what was going to happen to his future. I just can't believe that.
I think I forgot to mention this, Justin, but Michael McDermott had Ross Carver as his 21st overall ranked prospect too. So.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with the Diamondback system as I probably.
No, I'm not either.
So I don't know. It's 21st in Arizona. 21st in Cleveland system, I will say it's probably better than 21st in Arizona system. So,
yeah, I mean, let's just say he might be a top 30 arm or back part of the top 30.
Yeah, I'd have to do a lot more digging on that. I don't know. I have to do a lot more digging on that. Arizona had a few more moves, if you're curious. Old friend Jordan Luplow was designated for assignment as they added Carlos Vargas to their 40-man roster. So
Cleveland ties all around.
Jordan Luplow can come back and be the Guardians' platoon first baseman with Jordan Luplow, right? Or with Josh Naylor, not
Josh Naylor.
Yeah, Josh Naylor. There you go. He played first base for them. I'm just it is. I said this was going to be a quick podcast, and now we're sitting here at 6:55 without any news. It's going to be literally a 5-minute reaction to this news.
Yep.
At this point, it was more speculation than it was reaction, which was not what we intended. But we'll give you our
speculation podcast.
Yeah. Hey, we've ad-libbed this thing for over an hour now. I was telling somebody the other day, I said, you know what, podcasts, I feel like anymore, some people are like, oh, you don't want to go too long. I went back and looked at some of our downloads and our stats for anybody who wants some inside baseball here. I've gone back and looked at which of our podcasts performed the best in terms of listeners and downloads. Mm-hmm. And shockingly, as we always say, you and I tried to keep it around 45 minutes to an hour, and that usually puts us in an hour and 10 or so. Which we're at an hour and 10 minutes right now. The same amount of people listen to it, whether it's 45 minutes, whether it's an hour and 20 minutes. That has never changed. So I guess I'm grateful for that. If you are a listener, and no matter the time of how long we ramble here, you still listen. So thank you for that. Again, if you've gotten this far, and we're talking about how Twitter is in disarray or could be in jeopardy of shutting down next time you log in or try to log in, who knows? But we do have a Discord going for Guardians Baseball Insider. If you'd like to join that, hit me up on Twitter while you still can to ask for it at JL_baseball, or go to GuardiansBaseballInsider.com and fill out the contact us form and ask for it that way, and I can email it to you. Eventually I'll just tweet the link. I don't know. If we get to a point where I feel like Twitter is in its last days, I can tweet the link and just say, forget it, just jump in. Not that anybody can't join, but like I said, if you are truly interested in continuing the conversation there, we'd like to make sure it's going to those people who truly want to contribute to the conversation there. We don't have a lot of conversation there yet, so if you're in, we'd love to do it more. You got 3 minutes, Willie. That reminds me of that line from the Ninja Turtles, where I think it's Raph, or maybe I can't remember which Ninja Turtle it was now. It's just one of my favorite movies, and my brain's forgetting it. But the line was, "Forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza." And I'm starting to feel like our pizza here is getting pretty late and cold in terms of the news we were expecting right now. It's got to be
I keep on saying Zach Miesel's going to break some news here, and then the only thing I see by him is Terry Francona is the AL Manager of the Year. I think one thing we haven't mentioned yet, though, is that Stephen Kwan finished third in the rookie AL Rookie of the Year. I don't think we've given him those props that are due his way. Fantastic year from him. And Terry Francona. I mean, where would the club be without the two of them? I think, you mentioned some people think this could have been his last year. I think he's got another season or two in him, but I think that we're drawing near the end of his career here in Cleveland. I hate to see that, and I believe that there's going to be a lot of winning in the next season or two under him. Now, if only they would tell us who's going to be on the stinking roster so we could know.
Yeah, who's going to be playing with Stephen Kwan in the next couple of years? Seriously. Yeah, I know a lot of fans were upset about the whole Stephen Kwan finishing in third place thing. I think that's exactly how that's how I would have voted that way. I would have voted for Julio, Rutschman, and Kwan if I had a vote. Kwan was Kwan had a great year. Don't get me wrong. He had a great year. In a lot of years, he probably ends up winning that award, but it was a good year for rookies, and the chips fell where they did. And
let me ask you a question on this, then, Justin. How do you think he would have stacked up against Michael Harris III in the National League?
It's a good question. I would say he probably still finishes second out there. Maybe, yeah, I would say second. I would still probably have voted for Harris.
Yep. Would have been a horse race. But, I mean, a lot of people didn't see Quan doing that. He wasn't a number one prospect in the organization, wasn't a top 100 guy. I know, I believe it was Prospects Live and Jeff Ponce from Baseball America really started promoting, even maybe Fangraphs too, started talking about Stephen Kwan before this year. But just an impressive year overall. Definitely won me over. I mean, I've got his jersey laying here next to me, so.
Nice. Yeah, I think I would have voted him second as well in the National League. I was just looking at Michael Harris's numbers. People are like, oh, all they care about is power. I saw some people saying that all the reason Quan didn't win is because he doesn't hit home runs. That's not even true. Julio Rodriguez at 284. So he hit for average. He had 25 steals too, so he stole bases, played good defense. Michael Harris played good defense, stole 20 bases, hit 297. So all the other guys out there did fantastically in all phases of the game, and they hit for power. They just did everything. They did everything as good as Quan did, and they also hit for power. All right, we finally got some news. We don't. Okay, I thought we had some news.
Has done nothing.
Turns out we didn't. It was just an update on when Terry Francona will be available, and he will not be available tonight. It'll be an interview tomorrow, and they'll send an email out in a few hours. I hope that's not a few hours for the 40-man roster news. I think we have to get that sooner than that, but nothing else has come in at this point in terms of roster news. I don't know. Do you think that? I mean, Cleveland hasn't even officially announced it yet, so I would have to think there has to be one more announcement. But maybe it was just all right. We traded Carlos Vargas, and our roster is set at 39. We're done. I don't know.
Cleveland hasn't announced that. It makes me wonder if there is a trade involved with somebody else too. You know
what? Now that I think about it, they were dealing with this Manager of the Year stuff, and they must have found out he was going to win Manager of the Year, and they had to deal with that before they could deal with the 40-man news. So I wonder if.
Which is bigger news? I think Terry Francona is the bigger news. You want to break that first, right?
I guess. I feel like, well, I guess it depends on, you could do two things at once. I mean, it's not like Chris Antonetti and Mike Chernoff are sitting there with.
This isn't New York, Justin.
I know. They're not sitting there talking with the MLB.com or an MLB Network crew.
Or doing interviews for ESPN.
Right. Yeah. They're probably on the phones filing paperwork. Who knows? Maybe they have an intern to file paperwork with them.
I'll blame it on the team.
You think they could do two things at once? I don't know. They can't talk and chew gum at the same time. Is that what that analogy is? Or it's
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah, they can't.
I won't accuse them of that. I think Cleveland's front office is pretty smart and shrewd, so.
Right. That's what's amazing to me is that we still don't have any news. I haven't.
Maybe this is why they're hard to deal with in trades. We'll get back to you.
Yeah, we'll get back to you for sure.
Yeah, we'll get back to you by 6 o'clock.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe someone's alarm didn't go off. I don't know.
Tomorrow,
I'm just gonna laugh when we hear about it in a couple of days. Oh, the Guardians' internet wasn't working because they were affected by the
oh, that'd be hilarious.
I'm like, wow, that's really what would affect, and that'd be hilarious. That ends up coming out.
Any other moves that stand out to you?
It was 43
trades, as we said. So,
yeah, they're about 6 in, so wouldn't shock me.
A couple of interesting names by the Dodgers: Diego Cartaya, Michael Busch, Andy Pages, all added onto their 40-man roster today. So, Busch is a guy that Cleveland was getting a lot of, I'll just say hype that Cleveland was going to select him in the draft a few years back, and they didn't. So,
I'm very very skittish to believe this is true, but There's a tweet out there that says that Cleveland added Tim Herron, Angel Martinez, and Joey Cantillo, and then DFA'd McCarty and Ghosts, and then they also added Serafino Brito. I'd be pretty skeptical if they added Brito.
Why would they add Brito?
That's yeah, I don't know if I necessarily buy that quite yet. I'm gonna wait for a more reliable source to come back on that. Serafino Brito would be a massive upset.
Well, I said that they would make a surprising move today. To me, that was trading Carlos Vargas for Russ Carver, because we really didn't think that would be the move. There were other guys I thought they would move off the roster for Vargas first. So
I was asking someone, I said, why is Cleveland always the last to announce this stuff? And they said, well, they were at 40. They got to make trades to make room. And I said, the deadline was 6 o'clock. How long does this stuff take?
Notifying players. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's one of those things. Notifying a player. It's
Serafino Brito, by the way, is not even on Cleveland's roster anymore. He's with the Oakland Athletics.
Maybe they made
Just
a trade.
FYI. No. He was on the Athletics last season. He pitched for them. He is officially listed on the Athletics roster. This is why I didn't trust this. That's why I'm not trusting this, because Brito's not even on. Brito also, and someone just said, by the way, MLB deadlines are a joke. They're made up. It's kind of like The Price is Right. The MLB will announce it or say this is the deadline for it, and then they really don't follow it. So you can really just kind of do whatever you want.
Are you saying we could be here all night?
You might be. I don't know.
At this rate, huh?
Could be the way things are going. I don't know. You got plans?
Have I got plans? Oh,
Yeah.
I told you about that engagement tomorrow. I have.
Oh, that's right.
Covering a friend of mine. That's my only plans, is making sure everything's squared away for that. So. Put the kids to bed before my wife gets home from work. That's usually my plans.
I'm sure anybody listening to this on the podcast version the next day when it's posted, like, all right, really? You're not going to get to the good stuff? It's taking forever. I might have to go out and cut out the first half of this entire podcast because it's just ridiculous, because we're an hour and 20 minutes in and the meat hasn't even gotten here yet.
Yeah, the water's gone. The bread is getting stale. There's no more breadsticks even. I'm waiting for somebody to bring me more breadsticks. Where's my breadsticks at? Nobody's answering.
When the food is gone, the party is over. So, and here I was, we'll make this a quick half-hour thing. We'll react to the moves. We'll get out of here. And the moves haven't even happened. It's an hour and 23 minutes in, and we thought, we were going to start at 5:30 originally just to see, because I thought maybe they would get some stuff done, but here it is. I definitely don't buy. I'm sorry. I'm not buying these tweets. This is definitely not real. I think people are just having some fun right now. I don't think that's real.
I thought Brito was a pitcher from, Rutgers that Cleveland drafted a few years ago.
I don't remember, but he is definitely not on Cleveland's roster anymore. If they're talking about, someone said Juan Brito, saying that it was Nolan Jones for Juan Brito of a trade. Nolan Jones to the Rockies for Juan. No, I'm not buying that. Sorry. I'm not buying that.
Yeah,
he is Juan Brito is also Rule 5 eligible, by the way. So I'd be pretty stunned if that was the deal. Nolan Jones would get a lot more than Juan Brito. By the way, he is. Yeah, no, that wouldn't make any sense. I think someone was just having a little bit of fun. It's Twitter, right? Why would they trade for a middle infielder? You
never have enough of them.
Well, Well, Twitter is becoming like the weird wild, wild west now with all this kind of stuff, and it's a good test in media literacy. I almost feel like we should just, hit the pause. There's no pause button on this. We could just have to let it go. I was going to say we could try to come back and finish it later. I can come back and just give a quick take on it later, but we don't really have anything. All we have is the Carlos Vargas trade at that point. So, yeah, people on our comments on YouTube here are getting upset. I don't think that's a legit trade at the moment. If it ends up being a legit trade, I'll eat my words. But right now, I'm waiting for for more sources to tap in on that one because.
Is that one of those MLB Network fans or whatever it is? Executive, MLB executive wannabe account.
I'm not here to call anybody out by name. I'm just saying I'm waiting for a more legitimate source. That trade does not compute to me right now. I would need a lot of explanation of that trade. But it wouldn't shock me if there is a trade just because it's taken this long.
Yes. A last minute trade and players have to be notified.
Yeah.
See a tweet from Cleveland. Let's see what that is.
That's about Terry Francona. Sorry.
Oh. MLB Network. Yeah, I'm a little surprised we're this late. A little later than we have been. So we learned a lesson here, Justin. We don't start until like 9 p.m. once we actually have a move in.
Maybe next year. All right, next year the rule is we're not starting this podcast until after the moves are made. At this point, this is this is just torture. This is just being unfunny for the sake of making all of the rest of us suffer at this point. This doesn't make any sense to me. Someone said MLB Pipeline tweeted about Joey Cantillo and Angel Martinez, but I have columns up for Joey Cantillo on my tweet deck, and his name hasn't been mentioned. So MLB Pipeline certainly did not tweet that by any means. So that's still not official yet. This is just, like I said, I'm sure anybody listening at this point is. I don't even know if I'm going to put this in podcast form because anybody who's would listen to this on podcast form is just going to be like, really, this is ridiculous. I guess I'll do it, and people can listen as they want if they choose to. But according to so Nick Enright's mom just tweeted at me. I don't know why. But thanks, Mrs. Enright or Betty Enright. Tim Herron is on the 40-man roster, according to Nick Enright's mom. So there's that. Angel Martinez is on the 40-man roster officially. That's on Instagram, so that's official. Tim Herron is posting on Instagram. He's on the 40, so there's that. Or Tim Herron told his friends he's on the 40, so there is that. They need one more move. I'm going to go ahead and guess the move is Kirk McCarty in order to open up that spot. So we'll see. I don't think anything else has happened quite yet. But how about that? Thanks, Nick Enright's. I think it's Nick Enright's mom. Maybe
she got tired of seeing and hearing us suffer.
Yeah, I know. Gosh, she's listening. She's like, guys, it's over. Just end it. Yeah, I don't know. But appreciate that bit of information. It was very nice. I guess that means Nick Enright isn't on the 40-man roster if that's the case. But I have some suspicions that the Enrights will be rooting for him from another city next season if that's the case. I would. Yeah. I would definitely keep. Herron makes a lot of sense. I'm not surprised they kept Herron at all. So I'm going to go ahead and say that one is official. Any? What are your thoughts on Tim Herron? We got to give the listeners at this point some juice, Willie. So thoughts on Tim Herron?
Late blooming, late developing big-bodied lefty with mid-upper 90s fastball, high spin slider. He's definitely put in the work, and there's video of that on Twitter, him working in the off season, working on his stuff, but definitely a nice addition to the bullpen. Somebody that could be a middle relief, maybe a setup type if things continue to develop for him. I believe he was drafted in the 26th round from the University of Indiana. Had some starting, kind of a swingman role, if I remember right, in Indiana back in 2019, if I'm thinking correctly. So he'll be 26 next year, but power lefty to pair with Sam Henches. Hopefully command holds up for him, but he did have gains in spin and velocity last year. So,
yeah, the velocity to me was the most impressive thing with Heron, and control as well. I mean, he has never been a control type pitcher, and he still really isn't. But the control really improved last year. He went from about a 10 or 11% walk rate previously, and now he was at a 6, almost a 7 in AA, and then an 8 in AAA. Those aren't, fantastic numbers, but they're pretty good. That is Tim Heron's mom, by the way, who's listening. Thanks, Tim Heron's mom, Betty, Nick Enright's mom, who gave us that bit of information. So, thanks to Nick Enright's mom. Never know where information is going to come from. You never know who's watching. We definitely appreciate it. We definitely, I don't know. I have to say, I feel like we're not allowed to hope that Nick Enright sticks around next season, because if he doesn't, that means he got selected in the Rule 5 draft. That means he's in the majors. So I guess for the family and his sake, we have to hope that he goes elsewhere, because he'll have a chance elsewhere.
I'm greedy. I want to keep good talent in Cleveland, Justin. So I hope he doesn't get taken, but I'll wish him the best winner if he does. I won't be surprised if he is selected, though, if he's available.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I mean, there's a lot of teams out there that need relief help. The Nationals could be Arizona, even though they just got Carlos Vargas. I could see that as well, depending on their 40-man situation. Talking about spin rate. Spin rate is a good thing for Nick Enright as well. Heron is now up to 97, can touch 99 from the left side. That's special. It's a 2-pitch mix. I know he has a cutter, so that's good. But man, he's just got really good stuff. I mean, he can miss bats in the zone. He can get guys to chase. When he was at Lake County in 2021, he was kind of like 93, 95, and it was good stuff. It wasn't like, amazing bat missing stuff. He's gotten better over the last year with velocity, which is really impressive, and it's made the slider better. He has the cutter, the control's better, and he's just a big guy, and it's a very tough arm slot too, because he has kind of got a funky delivery. We do have a question here as we're still rambling on, waiting for any bit of official news. By Turtle Studios, are you surprised that Palacios, anyone else is on the roster? Battenfield and Pilkington. I'm not surprised that Palacios is still on the roster. I thought he was a guy they could have moved to clear a room if they absolutely needed to. I guess I'm surprised that they kept Palacios and they didn't keep Vargas, because I feel like Palacios doesn't really have a future here. You know what I mean? Willie?
I just read a tweet and somebody retweeted an old tweet. And
you have breaking news?
Yeah, from 4 years ago.
Oh, okay.
I saw it and thought it was new news, and I was like, wait, what?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's already 7:30. We're still going. I don't know. I guess we can wait. We can wait 10 more minutes to see if we finally get some news dropped, but I don't know.
Which means we'll get news in 11 minutes.
Yeah, right? I don't know. I'm going to go through and find my Tim Heron videos out there from him this season. That's all I can really think of. He's made a big leap in the last year, so that's good. Definitely a guy. I don't know. I have to go look at the history of the Rule 5 draft, but I would have to think that the history of guys who are left-handed and throw 99, if they're Rule 5 eligible, they probably get picked, right? I can't imagine that you.
Yeah, that's not a demographic that usually is available. So if he's there, he's probably going to get snatched up. That's why we thought he was a fringe guy to be added. Not because of talent. We think it's there, but we're just not sure of fit and roster space. As I said, a late bloomer, a guy that really came on this year, somebody that's just continued to work and develop in the offseason too. So work ethic, it does have its rewards.
Yeah, it does. By the way, Tim Herron, I should point out, was our relief prospect of the year this year. So how about that? I guess we did a good job picking. I don't know. Or Tim did a good job of pitching and earned that award. That's all I always say when the Blue Jays just tweeted their move, so I got to think that maybe Cleveland's not far behind. I always say when I put out awards for stuff from the site or whatever, and I say, or if someone wins an award, I always say earns an award, because you know what? You don't win an award. You win the lottery. I'd like to win the lottery, but you don't do anything to win the lottery. You just get picked. When guys win awards, they earn the award. You know what I mean? They have to earn it. So I always careful about the language when I say that there, because guys earn those awards. As far as Battenfield and Pilkington, we still haven't heard any official news yet. So I guess it's still possible that Battenfield can make the roster, but it doesn't sound like that's what it's going to be.
Yeah. I think it's a possibility, but I also think him being a dealt or even going in the Rule 5 draft would not be surprised, to be honest with you, Justin. Really, I think we're a waiting game right now. So I think Battenfield is a guy, though, at AAA, a guy that's got a good command. Looks like he's that 5th, 6th starter for a lot of teams. If you're looking for starting pitching and you want to snatch somebody up, you could probably even wait to the second round or wait until later into the first round of the Rule 5 draft and trade back and get him from a team picking late into the draft. You really want to grab some talent, go with a high-end prospect at the top, and then go with a high-floor guy like him and, later on. That's what I would do if I ran a team like the Nationals. I would take my chances on a few of these guys. Go high reward on one and then low risk on another.
Yeah, there's another kid we should point out that we haven't really talked about. I think Kyle Marmon, I think, is a potential guy that could be taken in the Rule 5 draft as well. There are teams out there that will look at his spin data and pitch data, and they will maybe take him. I think, the results don't really fit. The stuff is there. The results haven't been. He's older. He's been hurt as well. So, but if there's a team out there that feels like they like the pitch data a lot, they'll go ahead and add him. By the way, old friend Bradley Zimmer designated for assignment from the Blue Jays. So there's that. Everybody's making moves and everyone's announcing things, and Cleveland's not announcing things. I just want to. Not that I'm not enjoying talking like this, but it's like, I've got stuff to do. I got stuff I should be doing. If we're sitting here still just kind of wandering through this experiment, I'm going to give it 7 more minutes. Can we talk for 7 more minutes? Do people care to listen 7 more minutes to see if this comes in, or are we just going to say?
Our longest podcast, Justin? And what have we even talked about?
No. Well, you were only part. I think you might have tapped out at some point, but I think we did a 4-hour kind of forum.
Yes, I stayed for the whole thing.
Was it last year we did it?
I think so. Yep.
No, we didn't learn our lesson. You know what?
I think that was the night my wife said, "You talked baseball for 4 hours."
I think we did the podcast last year after the moves were made. So clearly, it was our mistake that we didn't do it. We didn't do it after this year. I don't know. I'm tempted to say we should just speculate and say it's going to be Martinez, Cantillo, and Tim Herron, and That's what I'm going to go with right now because I'm tapping out in 6 minutes no matter what happens, Willie. I'm calling it.
That'll put us at an hour and 45 minutes, Justin. But I'm bumped.
Yeah, so that means in 6 minutes they'll finally announce their moves. Got a good question here. Who would you hate to lose if those are the only three added? I would say
whose mom's listening.
Yes. Yeah. Either of the Knicks for sure. Mikolajek and Enright. Mikolajek ends up being a guy that had good stuff in 2021, and a team out there feels like they're going to be able to get his stuff back because he had a kind of a down year this year, as we've talked about over and over again. That would probably sting because he for sure was a guy I think felt like a slam dunk ad. Was a guy you thought could be a future guy in your pen.
Oh, I went as far as to say he and Enright could be up, this past season even in advance of having to be rostered. So I think there's talent on both of those guys, major league talent. I think Enright's a middle reliever. I think Mikolajek has that middle relief profile. Maybe he ends up set up just by sheer volume of pitches and good command. But if he's not hitting 97 anymore, you don't get him back up to that, then he's probably not going to hit that profile.
Yeah. And I think you did say in our preseason predictions you thought Enright would be called up this year. I do remember you writing that for sure. So, both those guys. I think the question for Enright is you don't see a lot of relievers succeed throwing 91, 94. I think there's more velocity in there potentially for him, but it's impossible to argue with the numbers he's put up at the minor league level. That's why, a couple people were asking me who of the relievers, who do I think could be added? And I had to have him on the list because the numbers are just so like, if you look at his numbers and you don't know what he throws, any pitch data, anything, you would assume this guy throws, smoke and has, nasty stuff. And, he strikes out 87 batters this year in a little over 60 innings, and he walks 14 all year. You would assume this guy's got nasty stuff, and not that he doesn't, but it's 90, 91, 94 with a big overhand curveball that's really good. It's not a profile you see a lot in the major league level, but if I'm the Nationals, if I'm the Diamondbacks, I know they've got Vargas. If I'm any team that needs relief help, I don't see any reason why you pass up on Enright or Mikolajek and just say, it's $100,000 to bring those guys in and see if they can help your bullpen out, at the very worst. You're looking at some of the worst bullpens in baseball. I don't see why you wouldn't go out and take that chance. I would hope they don't go to Colorado or some place where pitching can't be developed. You know what I mean? Like, that would not be great for them, especially for their breaking stuff. But so
welcome to Colorado, where pitching goes to die.
Yeah, they added Riley Pint today, and I'm like, really, Riley Pint? Like, I haven't thought about Riley Pint in a while because he hasn't really been relevant for a while. I know he had kind of a comeback this year, but very surprising. Anybody else? I mean, David Fry. I guess I wouldn't be. If someone takes him, that's fine. It definitely leaves you in a weird spot catching wise because very, very clearly you would probably say David Fry it's Bo Naylor, Lavastida, and David Fry in terms of catchers in the system. So that's the only thing I would say there. Gabriel Rodriguez would be.
I was going to throw out Gabriel Rodriguez just because of the injury. And then Ethan Hankins, the injuries, and then 3 years missed, but big profile there. A lot of talent on both of those guys, but both of them have dealt with injury. So,
yeah, I would be concerned for Gabriel Rodriguez. Someone can stash him as an injury hold, just because he had shoulder surgery. A lot of other teams definitely liked him because Cleveland gave him $2.5 million. So I'd imagine that means other teams were in on him at a different price. So you take him in Rule 5. That's not a big deal for a year to have him sit in the IL. Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Rodriguez, not a big deal. Ethan Hankins is not getting taken. It's just not happening. I'm sorry. If someone takes him, he's not going to stick. That is what it is.
Yeah, I agree. I like Hankins as much as anyone. Seeing him for 3 years. He's only been an A-ball. Nobody's taken him. I think there's a higher risk of losing Rodriguez. We haven't mentioned Jonathan Rodriguez either. I don't think he gets selected, but he mashed this year. I think strikeouts would be a big concern for a team trying to grab him. Mike Caprice would be an interesting grab. I think he's eventually a major league bench bat for somebody, whether that's Cleveland or elsewhere.
That would be definitely for sure a sore one for me. I like Mike Caprice a lot. I think that if they were to lose him, that would be tough because I think I like the upside there still. I'd like the potential. Obviously, they can't afford to roster him right now, but that one would definitely hurt. All right, it is 7:30. We're gonna go with the 3 we have. We've been doing this for an hour and 45 minutes, and Cleveland hasn't given us any news. I can't believe it. This is the most bizarre situation ever. Maybe I will come back and record something real quick and throw it on at the end of the podcast version and thank you all to all who stuck around on the video version to this nonsense. It was great in the first half, and then the last hour just kind of came off the rails because we didn't have any information come out the way we thought we would, and it's 7:30 and it's an hour and a half past the deadline.
I just want to see what you're going to name the podcast once you get it up on the air. No news. Breaking. No news.
Gosh, I don't know. Yeah, breaking news. Nothing. Breaking. Nothing.
Breaking. No news.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or no breaking news.
I'm gonna name it. The news came after we recorded this. I'm so sorry. I don't know. That's because as soon as we log off, the news is going to come out. That's what's going to happen.
You know it is. Did we waste your time? I hope not.
I've been preparing for 2 hours. I hope we entertained everybody. We tried to entertain ourselves. We tried not to sound like idiots. And
I'm just here for eye candy.
Yeah, that's right. Will is the eye candy. That's why we have so many. We actually have more viewers tonight on YouTube than we normally do when we record live. So clearly that is the case tonight. Willie's looking extra good.
It's the beard. What can I say?
If you're listening to the audio version the next day, which torturing yourself in an hour and 47 minutes with absolutely no, absolutely blue balled everybody at this point. So
I'm a hand model on the radio, so
I've always said I had a face for radio, so I don't know why we're doing a video version of this podcast, but here we are. So thank you for staying on with us and watching. Thanks for listening. Like I said, let me know if you want to be part of that Discord for GBI. I'll get the link to you. Hopefully Twitter doesn't die, but we'll see. Stay tuned. We'll get back together for another podcast, hopefully with more news to talk about when news does break. And thanks to everybody who tuned in. Thanks to Nick Enright's mom for the breaking news on Tim Herron. We appreciate that. And appreciate everybody who listened and continues to listen and support us. And we will check back with you when we have news to talk about on a podcast, which could be in 5 minutes, but we'll see. Thanks.